Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Legal BD Corner. I'm your host, Jason Broomfield, the Director of Business Development for Nexl, and I'm very happy to be here with you today. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be talking about a very important topic, something that is actually really difficult to get right. I think a lot of people think they are getting it right, but today we're going to figure out if you really are getting it right, and that is to create an excellent customer experience. Now, as you know, the legal industry, as with all industries, are being disrupted at the moment. There's pricing pressures. There is firms that are investing heavily in BD and technology, so they're deepening relationships. We're taking the actual legal services, the quality of services as a given. How else do you differentiate? How do you create a moat around your services? How do you make sure that you can sustain the revenue that you're getting out of your clients, grow that revenue, deepen your relationships? And today we're going to be talking about one of the most important things that you can invest in your firm, in your teams, and in your clients. So to help us navigate this topic, I'm really happy to be joined today by Marguerita Dolatly, the Director of Business Development at Katten, based out of New York. Marguerita, thank you so much for joining us today. As a way of getting started, could you give us a bit of a background into yourself and your journey in legal?
Definitely. Thank you, Jason. It's really nice to be here today with you. It's hard to believe, but as of May of this year, I've been in business development for 20 years after practicing as a lawyer for about 6. I was an M&A lawyer way back when. I really have a passion for business development that has evolved over this time. I always suspected that I would love it because I love business. I love the business of the law firm. I was an English major in college, and then I went into corporate law. So I have the kind of interest in communication and positioning and messaging, as well as the interest in business. And now, 20 years into this field, working with and alongside lawyers, I really feel like I'm in the exact right place at the right time. It's also, like you said, a very exciting time in the legal field. So, I'm eager to see how those changes play out. But I really love the strategy, driving results with the lawyers, thinking about our clients, how best to serve them, and kind of bringing this expertise that I've accumulated over this time to our client relationships. So I have to say I love what I do and I love talking about it. So I'm glad we're doing that today.
Brilliant, brilliant. Well, you've come to the right place then, because this is what we like to talk about as well.
Corner.
Absolutely.
Right.
Okay, cool. So there was about 5 things I wanted to ask you about just off your intro, but let's stay on topic, shall we, for today?
Okay.
Client
Okay.
experience. So, I
Yes.
mean, is it a real competitive advantage, or is this more of just an idealistic sort of view?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that we've started and it's like 3 minutes in, but I'm going to say AI. I mean, especially in the world of AI, it's like the personal touch and the interpersonal impact of what you're doing and how you deliver legal services. That is the foundation of the client experience. And that is a huge differentiator. Something I say to our lawyers all the time is no one is you. Right? And no one is approaching a matter or a deal or a case in the same way as you. And if you infuse it with all the things that show that you have stepped inside the client's shoes and are trying to meet them there and think about what they're worried about, what they're afraid of, what is pressuring them, and you're trying to lead them through the work, that makes all the difference in a sea of lawyers. As you know, in New York and the world, there's a lot of lawyers, but you have to kind of have that belief that you're bringing something unique to the table.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it must sometimes be a difficult conversation to land. Do you find people rolling their eyes a little bit sometimes? And if so, how do you kind of get them to come around?
Yeah, I mean, happily, I haven't really felt the eye rolling. I do a
Okay.
lot of I do a lot of pitch coaching. I do a lot of lawyer coaching, and it's grounded in evidence, right? It's not like a toxic positivity, like be yourself and everything will be great. It's kind of like, what have you like what do you know about yourself and how you approach matters? What are you proud of in your legal work? What has made a difference? I heard a story about a very seasoned senior partner who during a deal would kind of keep a log of every negotiation point where it made a huge impact for the client. And then he would kind of debrief with them, and not in a showy way, but kind of say, at these junctures, we did this and saved you that. Or we did this and maintained your relative position in the deal, and that you're really quantifying and sharing all the moments where your lawyering truly made a difference to that matter for them. And so the more you recognize those moments and then you proactively embed those moments into your work, the more this kind of cycle kind of perpetuates. It's kind of like client feedback. What we learn
Yeah.
about our clients' value in us, if we, we're going to talk later about operationalizing it. If we build it into the way we deliver legal services, that way we're really taking the voice of the client and making it kind of a uniform way, a standard of how we deliver legal services as a firm,
Yeah.
as Katten. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. I mean, it's a great story for a couple of reasons, but let's not forget that these are all potential touch points, right? So over the life
Yes.
cycle of the matter, each kind of milestone, each kind of reference point is a great opportunity to just feed something back to the client, which is not asking them for something. It's not
Right.
putting a problem on their table. It's just showing like empathy. It's showing EQ. It's showing that you're connected to the actual problem as opposed to just delivering the legal work. And in BD, we talk about creating touch points for our lawyers all the time. Like, how do we get them to engage clients? And so this is a brilliant example that crosses multiple BD competencies, not just the client. Well, I guess it is the client experience. Love it. Question. So we're talking about the lawyer's engagement with the client, which is obviously their primary kind of touch point. But when we
Yeah.
talk about experience, it really covers all experiences. Are there any areas that you think firms sometimes get wrong in terms of how a client might feel engaging with the firm that should be considered?
Hmm. Well, I mean, I think about the experiential marketing piece events, and I mean that is a prime opportunity to kind of essentially host your clients in your home, within the four
Yeah,
walls of the firm. So those are really critical moments to think about what would resonate with your client base. And I think, thinking about what they would enjoy, what they would connect with, what kinds of experiences would be meaningful for them. In your actual one on one business development, maybe like it would be kind of suggesting a golf outing to someone who doesn't golf, right? That is like a huge disconnect. So
yeah,
you really
yeah,
want to like know your client, know your prospect, and really deliver and design something that they would really connect with and that they would be drawn into, as opposed to shy away from and walk away from. So I think just as much as possible thinking about what they need, what they would enjoy, depending on the context, right? And finding some ways to connect, right? It's the connection piece that we're
yeah,
always thinking about.
yeah, yeah. Couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
You were talking earlier about, we're talking about coaching. I know you fulfill a lot of that within your role. You deal with a lot of partners. You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
Not everybody is, born with this ability to have sort of EQ and to be able to know and feel and be empathetic. So how do
Yeah.
you bring this into your coaching, especially for those that are maybe not naturally client relationship people? Yeah, how do you approach that?
So when you say not naturally client relationship people, you mean the lawyer that's being coached, or do you mean
Yeah,
a business development person? That because sometimes I do train the trainers kinds of things, but you're talking about
I'm
relating
talking
to
about the
the
lawyer. I'm talking about the lawyer, although it
yeah.
does obviously apply across the board. But yeah, let's talk about the lawyers.
Yeah. So it's very interesting because if you read the data on lawyer personality types, a
Mm,
lot of lawyers, and I'm one myself, so I'm not, talking out of turn here, but a lot of the kind of mindset piece of lawyers, I don't know if it's the profession that attracts people who think this way or the profession that makes us more this way. But there's, data that says that lawyers have low resilience, high urgency, which we all know,
mhm,
high like self criticism. Right. So I find that a lot of the barriers to relationship building for them are ironically like confidence based and like low
mhm,
resilience based. They're like, what if I make an outreach and no one responds? What if I do this wrong? What
mm,
if it doesn't land right? What if I'm annoying? There's like all of these questions, right? So, what I try to do is kind of, and my experience also helps. So I think I have the empathy piece, which is kind of just the way I engage with the world. I can really think about what a person is feeling. But then I have the cognitive empathy piece, which is I know that we didn't learn in law school how to do business development. I know we didn't sign up for this necessarily, and we're being asked to do this. And it's a critical part of like developing business and developing a law firm. So I know a lot of the hurdles and I know the pressures of the practice are extremely high. So I try to make it accessible for them. Talk through the strategy. Think about how it might land. Ask them good questions like, what do you know about like the recipient? Like, when are they on their email? When would this like, is it better earlier in the week or later in the week? Do you have a texting kind of rapport with someone? Is it something that you could do via text? Like, really think about how it would be received and then structure the
mm.
outreach around the best mode of communication. And also say, a little bit of, devil may care in business development, like try things, trial and error. It's not the same as the practice of law where you have to be perfect. You can develop
Mm,
your style over time. You can try things and see how they work. Maybe we talk through some things and then you kind of go out on your own and then you kind of do your approach it in your own way, but it has to be through your voice. It has to be through your authentic, lens, and then see what works for you. I never want someone to make an approach or make a follow up that doesn't feel right to them. It has to always be filtered through their lens and feel right to them. But I do push people to do that follow up because so much happens in the follow up and being persistent. So
yeah.
it's like a combination of, cognitive things and emotional things, I think.
Yeah, I love this. This isn't my area of strength, but I'm fascinated by it, and I think our audience will be as well. So, you're
Yeah.
talking about the irony of how, the profession either makes them or it attracts, their confidence, which also can count against them. So, there's a psychology behind this. Are there any sort of bullet pointed tactical tips that you could share with our audience just around the mindset of a typical lawyer, and how to navigate that and get them comfortable when their internal self is saying no, 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 no.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a good question, right? Because they're so confident in the practice of law, right? That's their
Mm,
comfort zone. And this piece of the relationship building, well, sometimes I actually break it down with them and say, I mean, you have strong relationships in your life, right? You have friends, you have family, you have coworkers, right? So I want you to take those types of skills and look at networking and relationship building as an extension of those things, right?
mm,
And also you have, powers of persuasion and negotiation, right? And so I want you to use them to like bring helpful ideas to clients. Think about it as a helping posture, not as a sales posture, right? And then like again, that empathy piece, step inside their shoes. What would be helpful to them at this moment? And like another piece, so lawyers are actually very good at this, the academic piece, the intellectual piece, and
mm,
it's within the wrap of caring about the client, right? You get research, you follow your clients, you get research on them, you think about what they're going through, and then you make kind of practice based suggestions on maybe who they might meet at the firm that would be a solutions provider for them, what they should be thinking about and preparing for in their space. So it's kind of like taking your natural strengths, which may lean more toward the analytical, and like putting it in within a helping posture. And then your suggestions emanate from that, not from a drive for new business, not from a push or a transactional thing, but from a helping stance. Um, and really to be like you said, I think you said like a trusted partner, a trusted advisor to your clients, so that they come to you and they run ideas past you and they engage with you as someone whose opinion they respect.
Yeah. And then just finally on the psychology and the mindset of the lawyer, before we get into operationalizing the system, how do you motivate them? I mean, at the end of the day, do you tie it to their financial performance? Do you tie it to sort of ego related like items, brand? What are the things, and I guess there's not a blanket sort of answer for everybody, but in your
Yes.
experience, how do we get them to get excited about this?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I always say to get them to, engage more and to care more is the measure of control you have over your own career and your own
Mm,
kind of evolution as a practicing lawyer if you nurture your relationships and bring in your business. Like they all want to do good work, they all want to do, high value, high potential, cutting edge work. And the more you take the reins over this process, the more impact you have on your own work stream. And also, I try to get them to tap into their goals, why they entered this profession in the first place, what they hope for their career, and even as they get kind of more advanced, what they hope for in their legacy, the impact on the firm as a whole. And also, I remind them that BD is also a group sport, and that they can kind of use complementary strengths with their colleagues, and that unlocks the next level of growth for most lawyers and most law firms. So it doesn't have to be a solitary pursuit. It shouldn't be a solitary pursuit, and there's that kind of collaborative joint effort piece of it that may nudge people who are more introverted. And there's a lot of introverted
mm,
lawyers, but some of the introverted lawyers are the most powerful relationship builders because they
mm.
usually listen very closely and do a lot of active listening and kind of reflect back what they've heard to people. So those are a few ways I try to get in there and get them to think about, what role business development truly has in their work and in their life. And also, it's fun. I try to remind them of that because I remember as a corporate lawyer, it's very document driven. And then there's like the intense negotiations. The relationship piece is where you can like get out and talk to other people and be in the flow of business and the flow of the world. So it can balance out a lot of time that is very intensely kind of spent, generating the actual work product. So I remind them that it's enjoyable if you get into it.
Oh, that was such a great answer. It's exactly why I'm in BD. I like talking to people and getting out there and just feeling the pulse. Otherwise it
Yeah,
gets a little bit boring. I love it. And I
amazing.
think there's the taking control of their career, taking the reins in their career. What a brilliant motivational topic to bring them back to because they're stuck in the weeds, they're doing a million things. Just remind them, why did you get into this? And now you can be in control. And for someone who is quite confident and already in control, that's a great motivator. So absolutely love that. Let's talk about scaling this. So, how do firms operationalize client experience instead of relying on individual kind of personalities that are just shining more than others?
Yeah, I mean, it is really challenging, and some firms are better than others and even are building out a whole client experience function. So I think a lot of firms are in different stages of it. I would say we're in one of the stages of it, like really thinking about kind of mapping out the different junctures in a key litigation or a key deal and thinking about what kinds of activities would support the client experience and what kinds of activities would detract from it. And that kind of mapping, where you then develop like some playbooks around what we can be doing across the firm in that practice area to deliver optimal client service, I think is like the next frontier for Katten, and is like a really powerful way to operationalize the optimization of the client experience. And then something else that we're doing is taking the feedback from the client interviews and embedding that into our client service standards. And then I'm developing a training series in conjunction with professional development around, what those lessons are and what do we owe each other. It's kind of like, what do we owe each other as members of the same firm in terms of how we approach a level of service for our clients, and what do we owe our clients. So if we tap into that and do some training around that, some reinforcement, some applications of it, that's something that we're actively working on right now.
Yeah, sounds good. Right, we're just about at time, so I've got a couple of quick questions for you before we wrap up. Okay, so what is one of the most underrated relationship building habits you think someone should not forget?
Oh, that's really good. I think the element of surprise/delight. We don't normally think of those things in the law. We think of problem solving, and all valid things: problem solving, rigor, intellectual focus on the problem. I was coaching a partner who had heard from he was an associate years ago with someone who's now in-house counsel at a company, who just reached out to him, and they were reviving their relationship, and they were going to meet up for the first time after not seeing each other for like 15 years. And I said, do you remember anything about her when you were both like young associates in the same office, sharing the same office, and the rough and tumble of learning how to practice law? I said, did she love, Starbucks? Did she love coffee? He goes, oh yeah, she loved, it happened to be the thing. She loved Starbucks. And I was like, do you remember what her drink was? And it was like, yeah, like a caramel macchiato. And I said, what if you showed up to your first meeting after 15 years with that coffee for her? And he's like, I could do that. And he did. And it like sparked the good feelings. They got off on the right foot. They entered into the kind of reviving of the memories zone. And it made those 15 years kind of disappear in one action, right? And so she was like, I'm seen, he remembers me, I remember him, this is a good person. We had a good experience together, and let's see. And now they're working together. So it was the first step of the renewal of the relationship, and there were I won't say that was the thing that decided it, but it revived the good feelings and led to the touch points that led to them working together now.
I love that story. When the dust settles, people don't necessarily remember the details, but they do remember how you or someone made them feel. And I can absolutely state with confidence that when the client went back to her office and spoke to her colleagues, that is what she mentioned, not the reams of legal expertise that probably came out over lunch, right? It was, he bought me my favorite coffee. Can you believe it?
Right.
What a cool story. Thank you very much for sharing. On that happy note, I can't thank you enough for joining us. I think we could have spoken for another 20 minutes easily, but we are at time. I'd love to have you on again. It sounds like you've got a lot to share. And to our audience, we'll be back next month with another Legal BD Corner on relevant topics for the industry. I look forward to seeing you then. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you, Jason.